My name's Kyle, I'm 31, I live in Pittsburgh, and I'm addicted to dating older women.
I'm addicted to putting orthopedic casts on my body.
And I am addicted to being Madonna.
And we're addicted to being identical.
I'm so addicted to all the things you do.
A word about my weakness, I'm totally addicted to bass. Wow, wow.
With the World Health Organization recently releasing more information on the newly dubbed gaming disorder, people online have taken to giving their opinions on the matter as usual. But this has just caused a bigger issue to arise. More and more frequently, videos and news articles are being posted about how the WHO has classified quote-unquote gaming addiction as a disease, or how people now realize they may need treatment for their addiction. While the behaviors of some of these people could be classified as an addiction and even fall under the category of gaming disorder, a large majority of the people that claim to be addicted often have a skewed definition of what addiction really is. Not only online, but in television, movies, and songs, the idea of being addicted to something is often referenced in place of a hobby, or in a more severe case, an obsession. Because of this, the line between an addiction, an obsession, and a dependence becomes blurry to the public. While addiction and dependence are often variables that rely on one another, that is not always the case. An addiction can occur without the dependence of a certain substance or catalyst, and vice versa. Addiction is most commonly caused by participation in some activity or partaking in a certain substance that leads to substantial physical or mental harm. Despite this, the addict will continue to involve themselves with the cause of their addiction because it was once or is still seen as pleasurable or valuable to them. An obsession, on the other hand, is based largely on psychological factors. An obsession occurs when a person has a lack of control or inability to stop feeling a certain way or thinking about something in particular. Because of this inability, the obsessor develops anxiety or uneasiness about their thoughts. However, because of this anxiety, they also continue with their behavior in order to temporarily relieve that anxiety by subduing their thoughts for a flexible amount of time. Because the line has become so blurred over the years, it becomes harder and harder to distinguish between a true addiction and an obsession. Shows such as My Strange Addiction and the prevalence of people with odd tendencies and hobbies in the news do no favors to this issue, as they parade people who may have a serious disorder around in front of millions of people. They contribute to the issue by often including people on these shows that are victims of an obsession rather than an addiction, and in turn, the public observes the symptoms of an obsessor and thinks, hey, I have that hobby or behavior that I frequently take a part in, that must mean I'm addicted to that. People are surprisingly easy to influence. As much as we want to think that we make all our decisions based on our own judgment, we usually fall victim to a lot of pre-planned programs within our brain. Ones that tell us to think about something a certain way or behave in a certain way for a specific situation. Think back to when you were a child. Growing up, we all had to learn what a dog was. This involved knowing the certain characteristics and behaviors that would classify an animal as a dog. Over time, as we saw these characteristics repeated in different situations, it became more instantaneous to identify if an animal was a dog or not. Now, without even realizing it, you're more than likely able to identify an animal as a dog from the moment you see it, based on how ingrained your idea of what a dog is supposed to look like is within your mind. With programs that give a misconstrued definition of an addiction, people often take that in and automatically apply it to other facets of their lives. Claiming that you're addicted to a certain brand of coffee or a fast food chain are just some of the ways that the public classifies themselves as being addicted to things. While a person can develop a legitimate addiction for these things, a large percentage of the population that claims they are addicted are simply shaping an exaggerated figure of their lives to fit the mold of addiction that they believe they fall into. Even now, as I attempt to explain to you the differences between addiction, dependence, and obsession, I can't help but paint it as less severe than the issues actually are. That's because even knowing the difference between the three, or distinguishing between addiction and dependence, it's so much more complicated underneath the surface. Addiction can arise from several factors, such as a dependence on chemicals, or the addiction to a certain process or activity. Even then, looking at a specific category such as chemical dependence, factors have to be defined clearly in order to determine if it's a chemical dependence to a foreign substance such as a drug, or something such as a neurochemical dependence. And then, say it was a neurochemical dependence, you would then have to identify which specific chemical or chemicals out of the dozens in your head are the ones that you rely on. And even then, I could keep going. You can see how the diagnosing of an addiction or dependence isn't as simple as just attributing the symptoms that you have or believe yourself to have to your situation. While some people are more susceptible to become addicted to something, it is often completely random. Psychological and genetic factors can play a role, but environmental factors can have just as much of an effect. While it is important to spread awareness about the dangers of addiction and so on, it's just as important to have a basic understanding of what defines an addiction. Otherwise, you may just end up worrying about something that will be completely harmless to you in the long run.